Recapping, so the question I'm asking y'all, is this intentional? Did Donald Trump mean to do this? Did his campaign mean to do this? Or was this just a beautiful, beautiful coincidence? CNN's going to ask the question as well. Let's look at it.
Former President Trump faced the music at a campaign rally in Iowa Friday. Amid growing legal woes, the former president took the stage just as the walkout song playing in the background blared lyrics that his opponents hope foreshadow his legal fate.
One could end up going to prison. One just might be president.
So if you couldn't make that out, or if you've been living under a rock and aren't familiar with that song, that is Brooks and Dunn, Only in America. And they're talking about all the things that can happen in this country, talking about someone who could go to prison, someone who could become president. Joining us now to discuss former Republican.
Just for the record, it's probably time to retire that phrase, only in America. Just for the record, that actually happened to Lula. Both things. Lula da Silva over in Brazil. Literally, that happened. So I've not heard a reference to something only being able to happen in America that was accurate. At this point, it would have to be like, I became the literal president of the United States, only in America. Well, yeah. That's about what it's restricted to now. All right. Let's hear. What do they think? What do the professionals think? Was this intentional or not? Either way, it's hilarious, and I'll give credit if it was intentional. And hilarious in a mean-spirited way, for the record.
Republican Congressman Charlie Dent and CNN political commentator and Democratic strategist Karen Finney. Karen, as you know, as I know, that Brooks and Dunn song is played at every single political rally.
Yes.
Folks of both parties use that to pump up the crowd, and we just don't know at this point if those lyrics were intentionally played at that time or if it was just a coincidence. I mean, what do you make of that moment?
Well, if anything, certainly the person who was in charge of production maybe should have paid a little closer attention to that. That's a little bit on the nose, just given everything that's going on. I'm just saying, they could have skipped it forward or gone to a different part of the song. I would imagine, though, within the Trump campaign today, someone is getting their head bit off, no question.
That's it, right.
Why? I don't think so. That's dead on. And by the way, that really is the stakes. It's more so than the song even intended. Those are the stakes. The only way it looks like this guy is not going to prison is if he becomes the president and pardons himself. There's no way around that. He didn't do his crimes subtly. He's incapable of that. He's not savvy enough to do anything subtly. So he didn't bother doing these crimes subtly, and that means the case against him is rock solid. Of course, this guy is going to prison unless his crimes get forgiven. The one thing that won't happen is that he won't be able to prove that he didn't do crimes, because, and brace yourselves here, because I have some news that might shock you. Sit down if you're not. He did it. He did crimes. Like a lot of crimes. Like a coup. Only in America can you do a coup to try to overthrow the American government.
Because his usual walk-up song, when he has control of the music, is Lee Greenwood.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, well.
Got to be careful. All right, this hour, Charlie, Trump is holding a rally in your home state of Pennsylvania. He, of course, lost that state in 2020. In your eyes, what are his prospects there?
Well, as long as he has these legal storm clouds over his head, I think he's got real problems. I get it in the primary among the base. This is motivating a certain element of it, and he's certainly doing well in the polls. But among the general electorate, particularly in a swing state like Pennsylvania, this is going to be devastating. In fact, the fact that Trump is in Erie, Pennsylvania tonight is significant because Erie is one of two counties in Pennsylvania. There's 67 counties, but Erie and Northampton counties are the two counties that went for Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and then Joe Biden. These are truly swing counties. So he's there for a reason. But again, Trump's legal problems and his never-ending looking backwards and grievance politics about what happened in the 2020 election, I think are not going to help him in these swing states and marginal congressional districts. It's a real problem for the party. They all know it. They want.
I just realized what Trump should have done is bribe the people of those counties. He should have bribed them with jobs and stuff. Republicans, it's time you take the gloves off. Really, you got to start playing dirty, and really bribe the American people. Bribe them with health care. Yeah, slip them some health care under the table. What you should do is fund Social Security for 50 years. Put 50 years of funding for Social Security in a brown envelope and discreetly hand it to them, the American people, saying that they dropped it. That's what Republicans should do the next time they get an opportunity. Bribe the American people.
They want Trump to go away, but these leading contenders against him are afraid to say anything to him because they're fearful of antagonizing his base, other than maybe Chris Christie, Will Hurd, Tim Hutchinson, and a couple others.
And Governor Ron DeSantis is facing backlash from some of his black lawmakers in his party over his support for a new education guideline in Florida, specifically this requirement that students be taught that black people benefited from slavery. What do you make of this?
It was a real misstep on the part of Ron DeSantis to double and triple down. And some in the Republican Party earlier in the week, even, they were attacking Vice President.
A real misstep. He accidentally doubled and tripled down. Let me try that again. A real misstep. He accidentally doubled down on this racist policy. And then an additional misstep and a whoopsie daisy when he tripled down on this incredibly racist policy. And oopsie doodles. Whoops, racist. That's not a misstep. That's an intentional thing he's done. You understand? I know we're talking corporate media. I know we're talking folks that are playing for Fox's crowd circa 2008. I get it. Sure. But let's be frank between us chickens here. That was not a misstep. He is a racist. So, he's just a straight up racist. That was a racist policy. He stood behind it until he couldn't possibly anymore. She's describing it as a misstep. Okay. But, for the record, it was him sticking to his guns. Something he genuinely meant. Understand that.
Harris even suggesting that she was lying about the standards. Well, now, as you see, as African Americans, there is something about the experience of slavery. We don't need to rely on textbooks or experts. We have our own stories in our own families. So we know about the horrors of slavery and what the outcome was. It does put the Republican Party, though, in a very complicated position because you now have conservative black.
Jesus Christ, she's black? I've watched this clip before. I didn't catch the "we" there before. Talk about race being a construct. She could pass for my mother. All right, that was an accidental dig, I think. I have no concept of how old people are. The point is, wow, I didn't realize she was black. And also, I think I didn't notice that because I was paying attention to the larger point, which is a good one, and something that really profoundly affected how I'm thinking about this, at least of late. An interesting thing is that it's part of the family story for a lot of Americans to say, well, great grandpa escaped the plantation, got hounded by literal hounds, and got shot at by henchmen for rich people, and like Bond escaping the compound of a villain to go on to be the hero of the day, great grandpa made it to Maine or wherever the hell, and thus our family has got its start as free people there. That, I think, is going to be a powerful force for good in the United States. And oh, hey, by the way, that is why what Ron DeSantis is doing ultimately will not work. However, I don't want that to be why what Ron DeSantis is doing fails. First of all, we've already been dishonored hugely. The United States has had its reputation in the 21st century now sullied. Just like it was in the 20th century, and just like it was in the 19th century, and just like it was in the 18th century. All by the same minded people, conservatives. We have had our reputation sullied in the United States by racist laws getting passed, demonstrating that we are a racist country. Still, embarrassing. I mean, we knew we were in 2004. We knew we were. The world basically knew we were in 2014. But we had plausible deniability. We could have said, "Oh, hey, the U.S. government just works real slow, and it takes time for things to officially make it onto the books." But no, we can't say that now. Quarter of the 21st century, come and gone, or going, and we've got these racist laws on the books. So I don't, in the name of a little piece of redemption, I don't want the reason that those laws get abolished and the people who made them get, let's just say, beaten half to death in the street, or a little more honorably tossed into a jail cell. I don't want the reason that happens to be that black folks once again saved our souls. I would love to see white voters come out in mass. And everybody but black folks come out in mass. All right, also black folks, but equally everybody coming out and saying, we don't agree with this. This is bad. These laws, these racist policies DeSantis does specifically are why we're out here voting against him and his ilk today. And yeah, I'd like to see us pass some laws. I don't know the specifics of them, but that make this behavior he's displayed punishable by a sentence, like a prison sentence. Yeah, I know. Freedom of speech, yada, yada, yada. Here's the thing. We have put up with minorities getting attacked for entirely too long. And I notice that in America, things are unthinkable, absolutely unthinkable, until they've happened. oh, the country could never work if we made Republicans suffer consequences for things that would be war crimes in other countries. Nah. If this was if this was Ethiopia and we were sending aid to Ethiopia of some sort, and one of their political leaders passed a law that singled out a minority in that country, and it just erased their history, insisted that their history be lied about, we would withdraw aid. We would punish them. And the way they would get their aid back is when that political leader was yanked out of power and tossed in a cell. In other words, we would demand other countries not behave the way we behave. So I want to see that filth on stage behind bars. He does not belong with free people. He does not belong amongst the decent population. We have a right not to have our air polluted by his breath. So do that however you need to do that, America. But that's what we ought to have. Toss his ass in prison.
Legislators in the crosshairs of Ron DeSantis at a moment when the Republican Party has been trying to make inroads with African Americans. And so how they're going to try to have it both ways, I think it's going to be interesting to watch. And I think it's another sign that Ron DeSantis just cannot win in a general election with this kind of a message.
And Charlie, one of the other Black Republicans DeSantis has attacked, Senator Tim Scott, appears to be heating up in terms of the polls. I mean, his super PAC has brought in around $20 million, and some state polls have him gaining on DeSantis or even overtaking him for second place. DeSantis was once, of course, thought to be the antidote to Trump. Now it looks like it could be Scott.
Well, yeah, Tim Scott has a very aspirational, forward-looking message. He is kind of like the anti-Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis in many ways, in that,
Boy, CNN is really looking for their Republican candidate, huh? Oh, Jesus Christ. So for the record, what they are trying to do, after the failure of DeSantis, they are trying to find the Republican they can prop up. One thing that's fascinating is that the media in 2016, and in this case I do mean the whole media, realized that they have the ability to heavily influence who becomes president. And you know what? Maybe the media knew this in the past. I'll say this generation of broadcasters really took to heart the fact that they can change it all. And the funny thing is, so did the rest of America, which means they've lost a lot of that ability. Irony of ironies. So now they're out there trying to recreate what they did accidentally for Trump. Talk about him so much that they give him free advertising, blah, 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 blah. They're desperate to do that with anybody at CNN, anybody other than Trump, because they still, in CNN, they're happy to live in a corrupt country, but they want a stable corrupt country. They don't want it Trump corrupt. They don't want it so corrupt that the thing's falling apart. So they're looking for a Scott. They would love, giant tax breaks for the filthy rich that run the company that puts out their shows, and the people on air. They want the giant tax breaks for them. They want bailouts that mean those people can still gamble with money in the stock market but have no actual fear of consequences if they lose. In fact, it benefits them to gamble big, because if they lose big enough, they don't have to pay. And if they win big enough, they become oligarchs. Hooray! That's what they still want, and they see that in Tim Scott. Why don't they see that in DeSantis anymore? Well, because DeSantis is losing popularity fast. He has no charisma whatsoever. And they won't have that with Trump because, as I said, that's too corrupt. That's so corrupt that they become the oligarchs of a country that is more like Russia, and therefore he is falling apart. Really, really fascinating to see who they're going to try to prop up. I don't think Tim Scott's going to do it for you, folks, but let's see, maybe.
Scott is not talking about grievance and victimization. He's talking about the future. He's talking about what can happen, and he's got this wonderful optimistic message. He's got a great personal story. I think people are responding to that. It's as simple as that. And again, Ron DeSantis has made missteps, as Karen just said, with the slavery and personal benefit in the state education guidelines. It's ridiculous. Suggesting to appoint Robert Kennedy Jr. as the FDA leader of the FDA or the Centers for Disease Control. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, so he's had these types of missteps in recent days, and I think Tim Scott is benefiting, again, with his personal story and a very positive message.
And Karen, President Biden publicly acknowledged his 4-year-old granddaughter, Navy, for the first time. In a statement first reported by People magazine, he said, quote, "Our son, Hunter, and Navy's mother, London, are working together to foster a relationship that is in the best interests of their daughter, preserving her."
All right, little news tricks. Look at that mugshot they gave Biden up there. Good Lord. Hey, quick note for CNN. They know this, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's irrelevant. Totally irrelevant. And they're going to bust Biden's chops a little bit about Hunter Biden having an illegitimate kid. Again, Hunter Biden, he's living the life of a tomcat. I can't. He is the human id personified. Is that the right thing? I think it is. He he's going out banging and doing drugs, and most importantly, not running for president. It's not Biden's fault what his grown son does. It's not his fault. As long as Hunter Biden isn't given a position in the administration, got nothing to do with the Biden administration. Apparently, Hunter Biden has an illegitimate kid. If you're surprised, I'm delighted that you managed to miss Hunter Biden's stories. It's totally irrelevant, and this is CNN just making a fool of itself over nothing. It does tell you, though, what they're trying to do. They're trying to woo over Republicans that want a little bit of red meat. Okay. Whatever. That's dumb. Leave the kid alone. Kids are off limits. Oh my God. Trump has absolutely no sense whatsoever of how screwed he is. Or maybe he has, this is like playing music while the ship goes down. Maybe he does know how screwed he is. I don't know, but I gotta tell you, my personal thoughts, I don't think it was an accident. I think he walked out exactly when he intended to. I think he was listening to that song, thinking like, yeah, that's it. That's when I walk out. When they're talking about the thing that's about me, prison. If anybody out there is a bit of a Lee Harvey Oswald, let me be clear. Nobody touches Trump. If you want to survive my wrath, nobody touches Trump. This motherfucker is going to prison. If he has a heart attack, I will slice open reality, leap through the rent I have teared in reality from Michigan to Florida. and give him CPR. I'll put my lips on his nasty, sweaty mouth and breathe life back into his body in order to keep him alive so that he can see the inside of a prison cell. There is no other acceptable alternative. He's got to see the inside of that cell. We are going to make sure that happens collectively in America.